Welcome back to Active Ingredients, the leadership series for people who build, scale, and shape the future of life sciences. I'm your host, Tom Dove, founder and CEO of Fraser Dove International, the life sciences talent consultancy. Today's guest is Karsten Pietron-Kattmann, a leader who spent his career where strategy meets reality. Karsten has worked at the sharp end of some of the biggest names in the industry, Novartis, GSK, Bayer, and was right at the coalface during the COVID vaccine response at BioNTech, where leadership wasn't theoretical, it was lived in real time. He's led from the factory floor through large-scale transformation and in moments where certainty didn't exist, only belief, trust, and execution. Karsten's experience has taught him that real change only sticks when strategy, culture, and organization move together. This isn't a conversation about frameworks, it's about what transformation actually feels like when the pressure is on and the outcome really matters. Karsten, welcome to Active Ingredients.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. It's very exciting to be part of this podcast, and I really look forward to the questions that you might have prepared and to the conversations. And hopefully, I can put out some thoughts that stick with people.
Yeah, lovely. Karsten, you and our relationship goes back a long way.
Oh,
And I don't know if you know it, but you were one of the earliest pieces of completed search work at Fraser Dove. So your name is synonymous with this business, and ever since 2013, 2014, it has been. So thank you very much.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that, Thomas. Thank you, and it's even better to know that I was one of the kids of the first hour.
Yeah, exactly. Fantastic. So thank you. But one of the questions that I've never asked you, okay, and now I get the opportunity to do so, is what do you think are the three key ingredients of a successful leader and why?
Oh, the three top ingredients for a successful leader is first authenticity, because it is key to not try to be another person than you are in reality, because everyone will see, everyone will understand, and for me this is one of the key things. The second ingredient that I always focus on when I work with my teams is trust, because here is really one essential element. If we do not trust our employees, if we do not trust our own capabilities, if we don't trust our organization, we easily can get lost and disoriented, and therefore trust is key. And the third certainly is curiosity and energy. I always combine those two, because if we are not curious, and if we don't have the energy to move on, I think leadership is not the true thing that we are signed up for.
Yeah. So authenticity, be yourself, trust, curiosity, and energy.
That's it.
Love them. So let's go back to when you were, say, at school or university. Did you know your true self then? Did you think, that you were quite curious and that you might end up in a career in life sciences?
I knew I was curious, but life sciences was not immediately what I was thinking of when I went to school. I always loved biologies and life science, but I also loved travel and culture. I was curious about history. So it took me a while to figure out how to combine life science and travel and economy and history.
So that was your kind of, from a starting point, you were quite curious, obviously, with lots of different interests.
Totally.
And what about the biochemistry or the manufacturing piece? Were there any milestones, any kind of direction posts from when you were younger that you thought that might be somewhere you'd end up?
Yep. There's a story to this. So when I graduated from school, I wanted to go into life sciences. But at the time, there was not an awful lot of job in this region where I was growing up. And a lot of academics were also unemployed at the time. So I decided to enter life sciences as an intern, or as an apprentice, as we call it in German, as a lab technician. So I learned life sciences from the bench. And this is also how I learned to love doing something with my hands and applying science to move on. And also here, manufacturing and operations were basically ingrained into this very early phase of my career.
Yeah, so straight onto the bench is a good place to kind of understand a bit of empathy, or, when you start to move through the upper echelons of a business, that you've actually been almost on the shop floor or on the bench. You've got a good understanding of what those guys are up to.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So you graduated from school, you had your eye on life sciences. Was there any kind of magnetism that was bringing you there? Had you seen any friends, any former university folk, or was it just a feeling that compelled you to go in that direction?
No, actually, I was growing up in a farmer's family, so a lot of my cousins and my uncles and aunts, they were farming, and I knew I didn't want to farm, but I always was very close to nature, and therefore, as I was excited and loved animals and nature and being out there, it was probably kind of a trigger for me to enter that route.
Yeah. And what about farming giving you maybe a bit of a backbone of hard work and resilience? Because I know that that's not an easy life.
Probably. So this is, getting up early, doing the work that needs to be done, and getting to bed late. This is farming life. And when I went to college or to university, it was pretty much the same, right? Because if you do your experiments on the bench and it fails, then you have to start over. And so it probably trains you to be kind of resilient, and also maybe trains you a certain level of humbleness.
Yeah, love that. And what about being on that bench, finding yourself as an intern in the life sciences? Were there any mentors or leaders back then that maybe helped shape the leader that you became later on in your career?
You mean in this very first part of my career?
Yeah.
Yes. So there was I would call her a trainer. Her name was Beatrix, and she was the lab manager of a very small laboratory. And when I started my internship, she looked at the schedule, which is kind of a state schedule, and all the lab technicians have to go through the same education. And she didn't have the capabilities in the lab to train all the requirements that were outlined there. And she developed a strategy that was based on collaboration with other institutions around my local area. And with that, very early on, and even without knowing what the future impact of this role modeling was, this trained me that the solution is not always in front of you. The solution might be hidden somewhere in another town. It might be hidden in another team. It might be hidden in another company. And this was something that probably prompted me a lot about how I approach problems and how I tackle different issues that come along my way. And then as a second, she also was very ambitious. So she picked up on the fact that I had much more appetite to the academia that is linked to the subject than maybe the average lab technician intern. And so she gave me basically the curriculum of her own biology. college degree. So she trained me with the college books instead of the lab technician books, and this gave me way more knowledge that I could apply then later on. So it was a very good preparation for my aspiration, because pretty soon I figured I wanted to be a lab manager and not necessarily a lab technician for the rest of my career.
Yeah, nice. Because it is funny how sometimes people kind of forge their own way through, but actually what you see is there's always like a moment in an early career, good or bad leadership as well, this is, by
Mm-hmm.
the way. But it seems like you got on the good side and actually had somebody that you thought, aspirationally, that's a good person, a good mentor to learn from.
Absolutely. So I all the time I come into this discussion about how to plan a career, because I'm also mentoring young graduates and people in the industry. We have this discussion and debate, and they always say like, "Oh, we have to go straight, we have to go fast," and I have a different opinion. I think we have to go the right way. That is basically also matching our own capabilities and our personalities, and therefore I do believe there is different ways to arrive at the final destinations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really keen to get into some of this as well. Before we do, though, I'd like to understand, like, mentally, when did you first feel like you were a leader?
So there were two moments in my career where I do the full association, or the full connection to leadership. Let me start with the second one. When I graduated from university with my PhD in biochemistry, I immediately decided not to continue in academia. I wanted to go to the industry. And then it came naturally to me that I was not looking for another trainee program or anything else. I really wanted to get my hands dirty. I wanted to get my feet on the ground, and I wanted to apply everything that I've been learning for almost like 10 years. And I decided to apply for a job in pharmaceutical vaccines industry. And here, although there were opportunities starting a trainee program or starting as a researcher at the bench, I wanted to go in the field and start off with the transformation, because the plant that I got was coming from an pretty serious regulatory inspection. There were a lot of points and aspects to be improved, identified kindly by the inspectors. And basically, this assignment also had a huge impact on my future career and on my perception. So I wanted to lead through this transformation, although I had no clue that it was a transformation at the time. For me, it was my first job. But then the other aspect, when I recognized I'm a leader, or I like to lead, was in my internship, because I was the first intern that they had. So we were only 4 people in the lab, and but soon they needed more capacity, and I hired additional lab technicians. 3 of those, because we needed to pick up with the business, and they had basically even a higher degree education, but they were new to this particular business. And then my trainer, she asked me to do the introduction for those even higher trained new employees. She said, "Karsten, you know all the stuff, and you tell them what needs to be done. You can tell them how we need to organize, because you know all this." And I said, okay, thank you. I can do this, without even recognizing that this was a huge signal of trust, and also a huge sign that she believed in my capability and in what I was able to deliver. And I liked this, right? And what was even funnier was that these people, they didn't even question. Although I was the youngest kid on the block with the lowest level of formal education, I told them what need to be done, and they followed, and we grew together as a team, and we delivered. So this was probably the first incident or intervention that kind of showed to me that leading people is something that I can like live up to, and what I can enjoy.
Yeah, and do naturally.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Would you say, obviously, being yourself and authenticity is one of your active ingredients of leadership? Would you say even at that point you were just being you and just leaning into that white space that was in front of you?
Yeah, totally. Because for me, it was not about status, or it was not about feeling proud or even superior to those people. Because this is something that I've been observing in the industry later on, that this is some sort of behavior when it comes to more and more power, that people sometimes retain information, that they try to manipulate, that things way more political. And at this very early time, it was all about doing the job. And I think this can be a great connection to my aspiration of authenticity as one of the key ingredients.
Yeah, doing the right thing because it's the thing that you should do. I mean, just by actually, not overcomplicating it, as you say, not trying to be anybody else,
Yeah.
just do the right thing and see where it goes. So it's a great start. I mean, those are two really good ones. I think, it shows that you had a willingness to take on challenges even without the experience, and then obviously looking proactively for some transformational challenges, because that has been a theme throughout your career, is the ability to be in the middle of transformation, but really create the right framework around it so that your transformations stick.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about creating real change. So you and I have spoken before about what you called the magic triangle.
Yeah.
Okay. How have you seen it come to life in your own career? And can you explain how the magic triangle works in transformation and strategy?
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Thomas. And let me start with the introduction of the model first, and then at a second step, I'm happy to share how I put it in action and how I've experienced it. It is what I call the magic triangle is a systemic concept that puts strategy, organization, and culture in relation. Right.
Yep.
So, in essence, if a company is making strategic plans and changes, there will be an ultimate impact on the organization. And this is not judgmental. It's not good or bad. It's an impact because a new strategy requires either new organization in terms of team design, or it requires new organization in terms of systems design, can be business process design, can be anything that is organizational in a meta level. And whatever influences our structure apparently is also then linked to the way how we work, which is defined as the culture. And I do believe a well thought through change and a well defined strategy, together with an organization in a stable culture, is a great opportunity for any given organization to grow and to create more innovative power and energy. So this is how things work. However, when the company maybe has a fragile culture, any transformational change of strategy or any impact that comes from the outside can bring the teams off track, and this will then also have an influence on how people work together. If they feel psychological safety, they will probably deal with any given change in a decent way, in a confident way. If they don't feel to be in a very safe space, then things are changing. And this is the way I always put this magic triangle in, also in action, because if you like imagine you have your strategy on top, you have your culture on the right, and you have your organization on the left, you can easily imagine if you kind of tip on the strategy, somehow your triangle is starting to move and shake. And depending on how strong your impact is, then the level of
turbulence,
of energy and turbulence is different. And I always use this model to explain to my teams, to my leaders, how our behaviors in the boardroom, where we put together the strategy, and then we say, yeah, we all understand what we want to achieve. Then we go out and talk to our teams, and then we tell the teams, oh, this is the new strategy, and now we are doing this and that, and this in addition. And for the leaders, usually it's more clear, but the lower you get in the organization, the closer you get to the operations or to the front line, the less clear it is. And here is where the magic triangle is also a powerful tool to explain and go further and deeper into the organization and explain the impact.
So if one of the three, so if you've got the right organization, you've got the right people that are good within a change culture, but the strategy is off, that is also another tipping point where it just won't work properly and it will be hard to embed.
It could, because if your strategy is not working, the best organization might not feel that they have a purpose, right? So and the worst you can do to teams is to take away the purpose of their work and the purpose of their day-to-day efforts that they spend. You will have a break of loyalty and integrity in your team, and this will basically then roll over into the cultural discussion.
So why do you think so many transformation efforts ultimately fail to resonate beyond the PowerPoint deck?
In my view, the least number of transformations and changes fail because of a bad strategy. Most of the companies, most of the leaders, they develop quite good and innovative and forward-looking strategies. I do believe that many changes fail in first instance because communication is underestimated. And usually what I've experienced is that people consider change communication, to be a measure. But for me, it's not a measure. For me, it's a gesture of respect and integration. Because if I think about how can I communicate to my organization, if I put myself in their shoes, instead of just saying, okay, this communication is clear, the vision is clear, it's easy to understand, it's only 10 words, everyone must follow, then we are off, because the organization is going to make up their own reality based on the facts that we provide.
Yeah,
and the facts are very different for the different levels. So the boardroom does need a very different level of information and a very different architecture of information than the middle management, than the frontline leaders, than the operators.
And are you saying that you're trying to be consistent then with, as you said, 10 words everyone must follow, but at the board it may be a little bit more elaborate and a little bit more intense and a bit more depth, and then as you cascade down, you can almost, I don't want to say simplify the message, but make it more digestible so they understand that communication is clear?
I tend to call it audience tailored, right? Because if you go to the operator level and to the frontline leaders, they require more context. right? Because they usually don't have this end-to-end view on where the business is headed and what are the external forces. This information is way more accessible and relevant for the boardroom, but for the people who create the value at the line, at the lab, that generate the results, that review the documents. These people need more context. How does my work fit into the new strategy? How does my work fit into the new organizational design? And they need way more orientation. And so therefore, I do believe the majority of changes fail because of the underestimation of the relevance of audience-tailored messaging.
Yeah. And let's talk about one of the toughest audience-tailored messages, I suppose, that you've had to give, because there was a moment when you were told to sell a site, okay? But
Yep.
then that site sale happened in the COVID pandemic that then turned into one of the most important sites within the COVID network. Can you give us a bit more information around what happened in that pandemic pivot?
Yeah, it's a pleasure for me, Thomas. Thank you for raising this point. In fact, this message that came from my employer at the time, early 2020, that because of network design and capacity, our site was going to be divested from the corporation, fell into a moment where we were all pretty isolated, because it was the time of the first lockdown in February, March 2020. And literally, no one of us, neither me nor you nor anyone else on the planet, could have imagined that it would be possible to stop the world as it exists before this pandemic. With no travel and no social gatherings, with schools closed, with everything that happened. We all know the stories. And for me, this was, yeah, a pretty magic moment, because I was told you need to divest the site together with the corporation, of course, but how to find a client, how to find a buyer when the whole world is kind of locked down, and when the regular or the normal elements of business and communication and advertisement and M&A practice is no longer working, right? Because if everything is virtual, how to manage through one of those M&A processes? And luckily, I had a very experienced CFO on my side. So we were two managing directors in the side. I was the technical managing director, and he was the financial director. And luckily, he had been going through M&A procedures, so he had some experience, and we could put together a plan. And finally it worked out, but of course we had to keep it secret, and we had to somehow keep the team moving, while we knew already that our future will be a very different one in whatever time frame.
Yeah. So that added complexity of communication as well with a site in a worldwide pandemic. How did you manage that as you were going through this M&A process?
The good situation that we were living in was that we had a great success with leading our only product that we had at the time from a tech transfer into a commercial state. And so the team was really very excited about this success. And as we didn't know when we are going to be part of another corporation, we said, let's focus on everything that we can control. And that is making the product, the only product that we have today, as good as we can, and this is what the team did. And so they were very proud. We had this registration in Europe, and so the team, despite this crisis mode that was happening all over the world, was very proud, because we were manufacturing a life-saving product, which was a biosimilar at the time, and this purpose, and we talked about purpose a little bit earlier, was enough to keep the team engaged and inspired, and they were even happy because we were called to be system relevant at the time, because we did a medical product, and this was also some sort of normality that people were able to experience when they came into work day in, day out. Many could not go to work, let's remember.
Yeah. And as BioNTech acquired the site, you and I have spoken about this before, where you almost led in total ambiguity for a while.
Yeah.
How did you manage that?
So the BioNTech acquisition was really a lucky moment, because BioNTech was looking for a place where they would be able to manufacture their vaccine, to host their innovative product. And for us at the time, we needed a new baby, we needed a new product, and so therefore it was really a lucky punch at this very moment. That said, also in the initial relation with our new corporation, the rules of social distancing and travel ban and everything were still valid. So this situation had not changed. And without knowing all the details about the process, because it was still in development when we were acquired, we somehow had to set our own goals, because if there's so many uncertain things, you need to focus on what is certain. So and here was probably one of the key strategies that we developed, because Germans, they admire the problem, right? So we can talk a lot about the problem and how big it is and how unsolvable it is and what effort it takes to solve it. And we tend to neglect we tend to forget to look at the things that are possible. And here is where I decided to work the other way around and say, okay, let's not focus on what's not possible. Let's focus on everything that we know. And let's put all the things that we know on the table, on the wall, and then we can create our own reality, right? Because if we would link this to this change transformation logic that we have been discussing earlier, Thomas, the strategy was pretty clear. We needed to produce the vaccine. The only thing is we didn't know exactly how during this very early hours, and then we built assumptions. We pulled all the information that we could eventually pull to put together the jigsaw puzzle as complete as we could. And we realized that even if we did not know some of the core elemental things yet, because they were still in development and in the works, we could set up a pharmaceutical company, a manufacturing work stream, a logistics supply, and everything. So there were so many things we could do, and this kept us really going through the weeds.
Yeah. And one of the words that you said to me before that really helped in this moment was actually belief. And it was the team's belief. You believed that they believed they could do it.
Yeah.
And how that for me in that moment of, complete world change going on must have been a really rewarding time to be part of that team and ride that wave of belief and then really be able to transform into what then opened up the rest of the world when the vaccine started to come out.
Yeah, it's very true. The belief of everyone that we are part of something as big as it can change the world and go back to normal was overshining literally everything. And it is probably one of the best visions and impacts that you could think of, that you are part of a campaign that might save the world.
And was that kind of your vision and mission to lead with that conviction when you couldn't really predict the outcome of what was happening or what kind of timelines you were on? Was it like, stick to this mission and we can go far?
Exactly. And there was one more thing we didn't talk about so far, because also in earlier time of my career, back in 2010, 11, there was the swine flu pandemic, H1N1, probably you remember. And I was the manufacturing head in one site that also finally launched one of the pandemic vaccines against the swine flu at the time. So I have been exposed already to this dynamic of maximum uncertainty, and I knew that something good can come out. And this gave also for me and for the rest of my team and some of the veterans that were there in the site also witnessed this early pandemic, the swine flu. This gave us also the self-confidence to move on. Even if we didn't know exactly how things fit together, we knew that something good can come out.
So next time, fingers crossed there isn't one in the in the next few years, but next time that there is some kind of pandemic, they'll be on the phone to you, Karsten.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy. I'm happy to pick up the phone then.
But I mean, it's a fantastic story, and I think, to lead within that moment, the pressure must have felt enormous. What do you think changed culturally within that team when the pressure was on, but still being able to deliver at speed and make that success possible? Where was the culture change?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we called this what you described as pressure. We called this working under the microscope, because there was so much hope on the news every day and there was so much light on all the vaccines manufacturers. It was not only BioNTech; it was all the vaccines communities that were on spot at the time. And the culturally, what changed was that first of all, people were able to live up to this belief and to the purpose, right? Because it was so obvious. It was on the news in the morning, or at lunchtime, at night, at midnight. So there was the media that told us every second of our lives how relevant our work is.
Yeah, hurry up.
And that led to an interesting and quite exciting dynamic within the team, because also there we had to change the way of working. If you look at pharmaceutical projects like launch campaigns, usually you start with reasonably long planning times and site refurbishing, site remodeling exercises and whatnot. And we did not have the time. So we had to be as fast as possible, but also as precise and good as possible. And instead of working sequentially, we thought about how can we create more energy, because we know so many things that we need to do. And instead of steering them all from the top, we put together, we called them kind of sprint teams. And these sprint teams, they got a task and they got all the capabilities that they needed to fulfill the task. And then we sent them off to deliver on the task without doing the regular like reviews every day, every week, every month. Because if you spend most of the time making slides for the review, you will not focus on delivering on the clean room wall, on the HVAC system, on the process machinery and what have you. And these sprint teams, they had a different level of accountability, because their job was not to tell me what's not possible. Their job was really to deliver on the task. And when they came with an issue, I needed them on spot in this very moment to tell, okay, what can we do to overcome this obstacle? And here's also a very important element. What can we do? It's not about what can you do. It's about, I'm part of this. I'm part of every obstacle that is there. And with this methodology of fully empowered and independent sprint teams, we were able to basically go beyond the regular speed of pharmaceutical tech transfer projects.
Fantastic. And is it something that you would now take forward with you into your next transformation projects that you do? The kind of concept of an empowered sprint team to push the needle faster.
Yes, it is something. Accidentally, we got into something that, in retrospect, I would consider agile project management. But at the time, we didn't even think about, is it agile or is it non-agile? It was the way it needed to be done, right, as fast as possible. And accidentally, we came then to this model of agile project management. And today, probably I can speak about what agile project management is. It's really about cutting the elephant into digestible pieces and deliver on those and put them together while the initiative is ongoing. So it is something that, especially in biopharmaceutical industry, which will be also a model for the future, because the regulators, they expect different rigor. The companies, the boards, they expect different product development times. They expect different launch dynamics, and I do believe these I call them self-determined teams, these sprint teams, they can be one success factor for accelerating times.
Yeah. And one of the things, obviously, as said earlier in the episode, you and I have known each other for a long time, and you've built some really successful teams at different organizations in different locations, different countries. I suppose now would probably be quite a good time to discuss how you actually build those teams. So you've been able to create quite agile ones, obviously, with what was happening in that last example then. But previous to that, can you explain to the listeners a little bit more about how you hire and how you're trying to find talent beyond the CV?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pleasure to share some of the insights over the years and over time. When I look at the traditional hiring dynamics in corporations and in teams, there is a tendency to hire an expert who should fill the current vacancy with the expertise needed to fulfill this certain job. Most of the recruiting efforts that I have been observing in the regular corporations do not look into the future. They don't look into hiring a potential that could do the job today with a certain level of risk, maybe like I did in my internship when I was a leader without knowing to be a leader. So I do believe we should focus on hiring people who have the capability and the potential to go way beyond the vacancy that we are hiring for today. Because if you are doing your job in hiring well, you will have a person who knows how to fill the current gap and who even is able to inspire the organization more, because you don't only want to fill your gap today, but you also want to transform, you want to innovate, you want to be more efficient. So for me, it's about hiring beyond the technical capabilities. And then the second thing is appreciate diversity. This is one of my mantras, because there's nothing worse than a team full of stereotype people of the same personality or skill, Of course, if you have a team of analysts, they will be brilliant in putting together analysis, but they might not be brilliant in transporting a change message to an organization that is waiting for new leadership or for new signals or for transformation. And here, I do believe, rather than looking for people who are conforming to each other, think about how can we create an ecosystem that is kind of polarized. Introvert people, extrovert people, analytical people, technical people. And why not combining also cultural diversity, right? Because also people in Latin America solve problems in a different way than in Germany, than in China.
And you've always struck me as somebody that would structure their teams to be complementary rather than competitive. So you're always hiring for the individual, but also how that would then work in the dynamic of the team. And lots of people forget about that.
Yeah.
So is that an important factor? Are you looking at people and saying, oh, actually, even though they're maybe a little bit less technically strong there, they will fill this personality gap that I've seen in my leadership team?
Exactly. And even create value that we cannot see initially during the interview panels, right? Because so I always look for people who strike me in different dimensions, not only in the technical or the pharmaceutical or like 15 years plus career. It's really about, why not putting a petrochemical engineer on a pharmaceutical team? Because if you are able to maintain an oil rig in complete independence, you will be pretty good in solving problems also in a pharmaceutical plant, and really thinking in a different way when you put together teams. This was always at my heart, I have to admit. And here also then, Thomas, what I always choose when I was working with my teams, I had team development as one key part of my agenda. A lot of organizations tend to start team development when things are broken. And my concept was more having team development to unlock more potential, to appreciate exactly this part of a person that I don't know. Because if I don't only see them in the office, I only have a very small picture. And when I see a person maybe on a team retreat, even in a fake simulated crisis simulation exercise, then I can see the people in a different stress mode, in a different environment, and therefore I'm a believer and a big supporter of team development as a measure and as an offer to any team.
And what role does kind of belief or self-confidence play in how your teams have performed? Is that something that you look for as well in people, or you try to unlock?
Yeah. So for me, belief also comes with this aspect of curiosity, right? Because if you are curious, you want to look behind the scenes. You have a belief that there's more than just what I can see at this very moment, and therefore this element of belief and curiosity, for me, they go hand in hand. And this will also trigger a certain level of team cohesion, right? If people have the belief that even being different is good and is a success factor for growing further and for being innovative, this is a good starting point. And self-confidence in a leadership team, of course, is one. I would even call it key expectation, because if you want to be part of a leading group, you need to know what you are good at, and you also need to know what you are not good at.
Yeah.
So it's a lot about, for me, self-confidence without reflection is not such a sharp knife.
Yeah. let's talk about your ability. Okay, so we've spoken about your kind of team building there, the dynamics, what you feel is important. One of the things that's been a theme throughout your career, though, is that global mindset. So I believe that international mobility is slowing down at the moment, sadly. I think it's great for career development, and I think it's great for most of the leaders that I've had on active ingredients have lived or worked in other countries, because then it just gives you such a better understanding of how to build global teams
Yeah.
as well. So can you talk about kind of the credit that the international career that you've built has been able to give you some of the, I know you're now back in Germany, but you've gone on a whistle stop tour of so many countries to come back. So can you
Yeah.
give a bit of an idea of why you think international career development is so important?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I had the privilege to work in across very many cultures. I worked in the United States, at the West Coast, at the East Coast. I have been based in Belgium as a site quality head. I have been working in Switzerland and also many years in Germany. And this aspect of international career is, for me, one of the strongest personal development aspects that you could think of, because the one thing is to go on holiday to Greece and appreciate the sights and what was there 2,000 years ago, and imagine how it was and read history books. But it's an artificial picture that you get of Greece if you go there on a cruise ship for I don't know, even for 2 weeks. If you live in the countries, then you get a different grasp on what it means to be exposed to a different culture, to different beliefs, to different values. And for me, it helped me to accept diversity and even appreciate differences rather than being anxious about differences. I do believe a lot of people try to avoid cultural exposure because of anxieties and maybe a concern to not be able to succeed. But for me, failure is a great source of learning, and so therefore it helped me to understand that status quo is worth nothing if you are not able to be open to the new culture.
And how important do you think it is to embed yourself fully into the local culture? Because some people go and do a quick tour of duty and they never really get under the skin of what it's like to live in America or Switzerland. How important do you think it is to fully relocate and get really into the local life?
I think it's extremely important to try to live a local life as much as possible, depending on the length of your assignment. But really, first of all, there's a great opportunity to live a local life with your employees. If you are a team leader, you can walk the shop floor, you can ask questions, and so there was one experience that I had when I moved to the US as a site head and VP of technical operations at the time. I was operating under my regular assumption that I was trained to, or that was part of my personality as a German, because usually we don't ask people if they don't come with a problem, right? So you don't go to your technician, say, how do you do? Is your assay running well? The expectation is that the technician comes to your desk and say, my assay isn't running well. I've been doing 3 trials in a row and they are like all over the place. And so I had the same habit when I moved to the United States. And then there was this Irish lady, after maybe 7-8 days where I was in the country, and then she said, like, Karsten, are you not caring about what we are doing? And I looked at her and said, how do you come to this conclusion? Yeah, you never walk around and ask us what we are doing. And then it clicked in my brain and said, okay, so would you expect me to walk the floor and ask how everyone is doing. And then she said, yes, because how could you know what we are doing if you're not asking? So this was if you come with your home perception, your home country perception, and you assume it's the same way in your new destination, you might completely miss the boat. And I was so grateful that this young lady, it was an engineer by the time, that she walked by my desk and asked this question, because this helped me to understand, okay, I'm really in a different country. And I have to recalibrate how I approach people, how I walk the floor, and how I live my daily work life. And with that in mind, I was also able to adapt to the local life, which in America at the West Coast is a great mix of culture. So it was a lucky situation to be exposed to a melting pot of different cultural influences.
Yeah, and you and I have spoken before where you said that the global exposure has allowed you to trust in what can't control. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Is that kind of leading without managing every single detail?
Yeah, and if we would stay with this analogy, and this happened then later in Belgium and Switzerland, everywhere, I think leading without knowing exactly what the outcome might be, and what might be the environmental influence that we would face in the next morning, is really about accepting different ways of arriving at the same point. So if I work in Germany, if I work in the US, if I work in Belgium or in Switzerland, people will have different methodologies to solve the same problem. And for me, it is really about listening and accepting that there is different ways, and even taking the risk that the way that you would let go might not lead to the goal in the same time that you are used to, but people will still get there. So it's really about trusting that there is more solutions to one problem that I could think of.
And being curious. I bet it's been quite good to let some of that play out. Once you did relinquish that control, it's like, okay, cool. I'm quite interested
Yeah,
to see what happens here.
absolutely.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Karsten, that brings us to a couple of questions that I've now got. Okay. And thank you very much for the detailed frameworks and understanding there. It was an absolute pleasure running through some of those topics today. I suppose what I'm interested to understand is what excites you most about where the life sciences industry is heading right now.
Well, the life sciences industry, it maybe also, I wouldn't say triggered by COVID, but at least being influenced by what happened during that global pandemic. The life sciences industry is looking into a very bright future, because um, if you look at the number of modalities of biosimilars, of biological treatments that have been invented and discovered over the last couple of years and decades, they really provide great access for mankind to treatments that weren't available maybe 10, 15 years ago. So therefore, I do believe there's a huge potential for the life science and biologics industries for the next coming years. And therefore, I believe it's going to be a very exciting place. That said, time to market is a big deal. So the corporations and the companies, they are looking into accelerating their product launch times, their product development cycles. And here there's going to be also a big challenge and a big hurdle to overcome by the teams. I think it's possible. We have been demonstrating with new modalities, which could be mRNA, which could be cell and gene, which could be other applications, that there is new ways of treating diseases. And modularity is probably one key to this success. So I do believe that the time of all these customized manufacturing plants is coming. I wouldn't say to an end, but it's getting to a less relevant measure. And I do believe that modular manufacturing and also on-time release, supported with artificial intelligence models, that this is something that has a lot of potential for the industry.
And talking about potential, let's discuss the future of leadership. So what qualities, or what do you think is going to define the next generation of successful leader in life sciences?
I would say the future leaders, they need to be very open to technology, but they also need to be very open to a different values architecture in society. Because as we speak, the baby boomers, and probably I'm at the end of the baby boomer wave, maybe, or at the beginning of generation, what was that, X? This generation is going to leave the industry very soon. And I've seen new talent coming, but they have very different expectations on status, on compensation, on exposure, on involvement. And if I translate this into the challenges and the requirements for new leaders, it means that you need to be even more open to diversity, and you have to appreciate different concepts of life and different concepts of also company belonging for the future. So in the past, it was maybe an aspiration to have myself and the next generation as part of one corporation. Today, this is no longer reality, right? So, and I believe, be open to technology and appreciate diversity and embrace diversity as a growing force and as a growing source. I think this is for me the key for future leader success.
Yeah, and I was going to say, how do you personally continue to grow as a leader? But are they some of the concepts that you're looking at now? Are you looking at leaning into more of that technology, leaning into more of that openness and, cultural diversity in your teams?
Yes. So at this very moment, my corporate career came to maybe a permanent end. So as we speak, I'm working as a consultant, and my topics and my fields that I'm trying to help customers with is really appreciating diversity of teams and also diversity of technologies. And from that perspective, I totally embrace, and I'm lucky today that I've met people from the IT planet. They teach me how to integrate AI and data analytics into real life, and I think it is pivotal for every one of us to not question whether AI or data analytics have a space in our lives. The only question is, how do we fit them into our lives?
Yeah. Karsten, I have absolutely loved today's discussion. Thank you ever so much. It's been a long time coming. You were one of the first people I reached out to when I said, right, I've got this idea of leadership podcasting, and I think that you'd be great. So thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Thomas, for this opportunity and for the great and very lively conversation. It was a lot of fun. So you invited me in the beginning. Enjoy the podcast and have fun, and this is what I really felt. So it was a very short while and amazing discussion. I would love to continue.
Lovely, thank you. Maybe we'll get you back for another episode.
Okay, maybe. Why not?
Perfect. Thanks,
Okay,
Karsten.
Thomas, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.